Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Whole 115 Yards Women's Football Podcast. And today, as you can see, I'm joined by a very different guest, who I'm very pleased to welcome on. We have the wonderful Ricky Pledger, who is the manager of Lincoln United Women. Ricky, thank you very much for joining me. How are you?
No, I'm well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Really looking forward to it.
Me too, thank you. Now, I did send you some questions through because I just wanted to kind of know a bit about where you've come from, how the pre-season's gone, and how you are thinking about the future and kind of what's going to happen. So let's dive straight in, shall we? So first of all, congratulations on your new role, first season at Lincoln United Women. So kind of for people who may not be as familiar with you, could you tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and kind of what led you to take on the role?
Yeah, no, thank you. So I've moved to the area sort of about 10 years ago now. I'm previously from Northampton. That's where I sort of started some of my coaching. First started getting into junior coaching, as you do. Started working my way up through some of the age groups there. Then as I moved over this way into Lincolnshire, again, just started pushing myself, challenging myself to go a little bit further with my coaching, go into higher levels, higher age groups, and then exploring a few bits with men's and women's teams and into academies and stuff, and sort of gone down that route. Coaching was always something that appealed to me, something that I always enjoyed. So never really played as much as maybe some other people did. Just really loved the idea of coaching, and alongside that, got into teaching and teaching PE. And that's what I do aside from the coaching. So it's quite a passionate thing that I do.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. And what was maybe a turning point between kind of coaching men's and women's football? Was there a moment where you thought, I want to go down the women's path rather than the men's?
I say it was just a little bit different. I was coaching a boys team at the time, and then I had a couple of girls that came into the squad. And at that time, it was just something a little bit different. And then the offer came up to go and run a girls team at Boston United as part of their sort of RTC that they had at the time. Yeah. And so I took up that route and brought those girls along with me, started getting into the girls game, and just really enjoyed it. So it was just something a little bit different, something that I quite enjoyed doing. Yeah. And yeah, it just sort of took off from there, really. And going for them through the girls and into a ladies' side, I sort of stepped away from the men's that I was helping with and the junior boys. So
yeah, oh, fantastic! So quite a natural progression into that side. And how would you kind of describe your coaching style, and what do you think you're going to kind of bring to United?
It's a little bit different for me. Just through everything I've done, I'm very big on confidence. And players feeling confident, having that self-belief. For me, there's certain parts within a game where you need your players to back themselves, particularly in those 1v1 situations, whether that be beating that last player, whether that be defensively in that last situation, or as it comes down to some, just having that confidence to take that shot at goal rather than just playing that extra pass and stuff. And for me, if the players are feeling confident, then you're going to get the best out of them. They're willing then to learn and take bits on. And from there, you can start to challenge them with a few different things to get the best out of them that's going to support them as a unit, as a team, and take them forward.
Yeah, sounds fantastic. And do you think that, because I've got a teaching degree as well, so do you think that kind of that teaching aspect really lends itself well into this management style, because you've seen kind of all aspects of what it takes to be a leader, be a motivator, and how ultimately to get those good results?
Yeah, I mean, I've tried different approaches over the years. For some, I've gone in a bit more with the adults. I've gone in a bit more strict, a bit more stern, and in my experience, I end up losing those players very early on.
Oh,
Trying then to recover back from that, and sort of build those bridges again to get the best out of them. Of right, this is what I want you to do, without them switching off and ignoring those in those situations.
yeah.
I found that actually just going a little bit softer sometimes helped with those moments, so that when I needed to be a bit more snappy and a bit more upfront around, no, this is what I'm asking for, they were more acceptable to taking that on and realizing actually this is wrong. I need to listen to that because this isn't normally how we would react.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of setting those expectations without pushing people too hard, but finding how they respond the best. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because when completely different, but I trained in primary education, but I've taught all the way up to year 11. And you think the difference between talking, again, different age ranges, different, and you think, okay, well, I know what I can get away with at that level and how they can respond. But yeah, it just kind of, it all kind of fits in, doesn't it? Once you've got that experience. So it's been great to see lots of player announcements as well over the past weeks and months. And preseason would have been a really perfect time for you to kind of see how people are gelling, how they get on, and things to work on. So how pleased were you with how preseason went overall?
I mean, honestly, overall, I think there was a few moments that weren't quite right, and particularly with a lot of change and stuff that we've had within the club and within the team itself. It was trying to find the players, the positions fitting in the coaching alongside that to try and build on what we want to focus on, how we want to play. So maybe that was something that we could have started a little bit earlier. But again, obviously, naturally, with the season finishing, the pre-season, getting into it, a credit to some of those players that really took to that very quickly, with quite a big change going on. But it was good to see those newer faces coming in, and again, how quickly they settled into the team and some of the existing players that are in there. And then it sort of started to take off as we slowly built closer and closer to the start of the season.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. And are there any players that, either new players or existing players, that people should maybe watch out for the next couple of years or even this season?
I mean, it's difficult to just sort of pick one. Obviously, there's some really good players in there that have really stood out in certain situations. Obviously, we've brought in quite a few new players from different teams and different backgrounds. Some with experience, some that are a little bit more newer to the game, newer to the league. Sorry, should we say?
Yeah.
But I think for one that stood out so far over pre-season, would probably be Izzy Thorpe. Just with she's coming with a bit of grit about her. Getting stuck in, and that's something that is going to be crucial sometimes. And credit to her, she scored our first goal in the league on Sunday in our game.
I was just about to say, yeah, she's deserved that title. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I was going to say we're going to talk about Izzy once we talk about the first match. Now, very excitingly, then the Whites were promoted at the end of last season, which is incredible. It was an unbeaten run, wasn't it?
Yeah, they did. They had a good year.
Yeah, very, very impressive indeed. So now in Division 1 Midlands, which is Tier 4 for those who aren't too sure. Now, can you tell us, kind of from your perspective, obviously being new to the club, but what journey have the club been on the past few seasons, and essentially what can people expect from the club from this season as well?
Yeah, so obviously coming in new this year, but being in and around, I've seen where the club have been at. Obviously, they've been pushing for that promotional spot the last couple of seasons, just not quite made it. A couple of little slips or close games. So last season they finally did it, and obviously what a season they had. They lost one game all year, and that was within the FA Cup.
Which is mad, isn't it, to think about?
Yeah. Yeah, so a fantastic run for them, doing the treble and everything that they've achieved. So obviously now moving into the National League. A bit of a change within the club in its structure around some of the board members, the committee, the obviously coaches within the women's side of the club. And obviously now how that leads into having that bit of clarity between the men's and the women's, and obviously the push to support both teams as they look to secure themselves within the league. Obviously the men's trying to get back up, the women's now trying to establish themselves within that league, that we want to stay in that league, and it's how can we support that and make sure that happens, and also encourage obviously the younger teams that we've got coming through. So getting those girls into the club to support and watch and try and build on from there.
Yeah, because it's all about creating that strong foundation, isn't it? And making sure it's not just kind of a fluke, a one-off. It's right, we deserve to be in this division, and this is kind of where we're going to stay. And talking about that, we've seen it, in the WSL, in Championship, every tier, that there's one team that maybe gets promotion, then it's a bit of like a yo-yo effect, goes straight back down because that kind of funding, that foundation isn't in place. So obviously winning would be perfect this season, but is there a kind of benchmark and aim where you think, even if we get to that point, we'd be happy, that would show how far we've come as a team this season? Or do you not think like that?
So obviously the main focus is to stay in the league. That has to be what we achieve. So that's the target I've set the girls, that's the target I've set the club. Obviously, yes, anything above that is superb. But for where we're at, the jump from tier 5 into tier 4 is huge.
Yeah.
So we've set ourselves our points target as to this is what we want to try and achieve. That keeps us in the league. We've set out the sort of the games that we need to be really going for. But as I say, that has got to be the crucial bit across the season. And what we don't want to do is try and get carried away thinking about these are the teams we should be beating, these are the teams that we know we're going to lose to, and it's got to be compact. We've got to compete within that league, and how we set up is going to be slightly different, but we've got to stay in that league.
And that's the thing. It's almost, even though I have asked the question, it's almost like you can't look at that longer picture yet. It's got to be game by game and really taking each point as it comes, hasn't it? Rather than
so looking at some of the teams that we play, and obviously the first time we play them, to then how can we secure ourselves for the second time we play them? What change do we need to make within that? And obviously coming off such a great season that they had last year, winning the treble, realistically, some of the cups, obviously the League Cup this year is going to event teams in our league and the division higher. So is that a priority? Is that something that, we're realistically going to be achieving in? Probably not, but, we want to do well in it. We want to show that we're secure within the league and playing against those teams, but the league has to take priority on what we're doing. So maybe for some of the fans, as to, you won three cups last year, it's the change and the process that we're on to secure ourselves going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Because almost in a way, you don't want to go all guns blazing and maybe take away that edge, like you say, from the league, when really the league is kind of the number one, the priority, helping you stay up, helping you stay there. Whereas cup games can almost be seen as like an added bonus, can't they? And talking about the league as well, local rivals back again with Lincoln City, and I know the club's faced them previously, some very memorable winning moments as well. How does it feel to kind of have that real close local derby back again this season?
Well, any sports fan loves a derby, don't they?
Yeah.
Just having that little edge, that psychological factor that you're always looking forward to, knowing that game's coming up, you're going to play them at home and away, and it's sort of, you set yourself those targets to try and win those games. But having that within the club and within the city is fantastic, not just for the team, I think, but also for, as I mentioned earlier, the girls and the younger fans trying to support the club, getting those down to the games, and something that they can then use as an inspiration and something to look to try and achieve, and think, oh, fantastic, we've got these games that we can go and watch. It's going to be a good match, and something to try and achieve for them going forward. But I know for the girls as well, it's that psychological factor in that game of that's the game we've got to really go for, and they all want to play in, and they all want to go out there and win those games. So
yeah, absolutely, because it almost becomes like that's like the spectacle, isn't it? That's like the moment of the season. Because I grew up in the northeast, Sunderland were my team, and obviously back in the Championship now, we've got that Sunderland Newcastle derby again. So so yes, I do love a derby. So yeah, I can't wait to see the Lincoln one this season. Now, coming on to, so at the time of recording this, the team have already played their first game of the season. Kind of going into it, so it was away to Notts County, who did escape relegation by a single point last season. Now, it comes to a point, doesn't it? And again, from your perspective, can you judge too much by last season's results? Or do you kind of go into every team as clean slate, just they could be, the best team in the world, regardless of where they finished last season? So how are you feeling building up to this match?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the league and the teams that are in it, you've got to sort of take three teams that are going to be within that top four. They are going to be the teams that are competing for that title. So that those games are the ones that are going to be a lot trickier than the others. But it is a league where one little slip up, one little error, and anybody can beat anyone within that league. As we've seen by some of the points that Notts County picked up, and even Sheffield when they got relegated, is the games that they were winning and the points they were picking up were against some of the other teams higher in that division.
Yeah.
So I guess going into that first game, it's a case of looking at where we sit within that and how we're competing against the team that they've got. Obviously, again, they're looking now to step on for where they're trying to aim to achieve in this year, the players that they've brought in. So for us, the main focus was we've got to be competing in that game. We've got to see how we compare to a team that's had a year in that league, and then start to assess, as we say, game by game, where we're looking at, how we're competing, and obviously knowing from playing them this time that when we face them again at home in December, how we set up to support obviously try and get a better result in the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that first game kind of gives you your benchmark, doesn't it? And be like, right, okay, this is where we are. This is where we need to go and need to improve. So from that game, then, so it did end 2-1. Now I was following along on Twitter with all of the updates, and it seemed, again, from someone who wasn't there, that I felt very, very close. And annoyingly, Notts County did get the winner in, I think it was the 90th minute, wasn't it? So it was really,
Yeah.
really right at the end. And obviously, that's kind of the best way to win, apart from penalties, but obviously like the worst kind of feeling as well, isn't it? You managed to push them right the way to the end. So kind of from your perspective, how did that feel? Was it 2-1 representative of what you saw on the pitch?
No, everybody's going to say obviously the losing manager,
Yeah.
but they were not the better team, and we certainly had spells where we were on top. Now, had the game finished a draw, I think everybody's happy with that. I think people would turn around and say, "Yeah, that's reflective of the game and the battle that had happened on the pitch." But for us, it was just that last minute, that switch off at a corner, a set piece that's outdone us, and full credit to them. The delivery was superb. The header to just knock it past the keeper at the back post, fantastic. There wasn't a lot more that we could have done to stop that. But frustrating to concede on the 90th minute. Just those last 5 minutes is where we sort of looked at and we thought that's where we sort of started dropping off. And it's something that obviously we can take as a step forward, what we need to work on. But certainly, I think it was around the 75th, 78th minute, we had a chance to go ahead. Didn't capitalise on that, and obviously ended up with the loss. So gutted.
Yeah, it was a frustrating one because again I was refreshing and I was like, no, they've conceded. Now we will talk about the positive. So Izzy Thorpe gets the equaliser in the 25th minute, which again was described as a great strike. So can you tell us about kind of that setup? What kind of made that bit of play to end in that strike to be proud of her?
Yeah, so obviously I know I mentioned earlier just her bit of grit that she brings to the team, her desire to win the ball, whether that be defensively or attacking it. So that's sort of what it came down to. It was a corner, I believe, that had been crossed in. Again, set pieces is something that we feel we're quite strong on. We'd seen that in pre-season, so it just made that frustration to concede a corner in the 90th minute. But yeah, so the ball had been played in. And obviously Izzy's just got on the knockdown before anybody else and managed to just sort of get there. I mean, Alice had initially won the first ball and managed to spin on it, and she just played it back across, and Izzy's just got there ahead of everybody else and just drilled it straight into the goal. So it was fantastic to see.
Yeah, and at that moment we were thinking, right, game on. It's 1-1. Let's keep.
Yeah, their goal. It just came from an interception. It was a pass that had been played across. We were just too slow to transition quickly into our defensive shape, and we were outnumbered from that moment. So quickly broke forward, and Amy had made a great save, but she's pushed it onto the post. It's then come back out and hit her and gone back in.
Right, yeah.
So it wasn't the cleanest of strikes, but equally it was frustrating for us. That put them ahead. But the mentality from the girls to go back out and get themselves back into that game was superb. We had a good 10 minutes where we were on top. We then grabbed the goal, and from there, like I say, it was end to end. It was a good game, a good contest between both teams. Just a frustrating final result.
Yeah. No, and so overall then, was it kind of, apart from the result, was it the performance that you think, okay, actually, we've got some really good bones here to then build on for next week? So it's Solihull Moors next week, I believe. First game at home. So yeah, so what kind of bits and pieces did you take from the game that you're going to put into play for next week?
So I was quite pleased with the way we set up, as I say. Certainly 70 minutes of that game, the situation that we found ourselves in competing, the way we'd set up defensively off the ball to deny anything through was superb. And when we look at the two goals, they didn't manage to break us down at all. I think they had one chance where they got through. Everything else we shut out. So that's a good positive to take. And we know that Nott's style of play is going to be completely different to Solihull's.
Yeah.
So it's making sure we've got that discipline within there, because Notts wanted to play into the striker. They wanted to go long, knock down, and then release wingers.
Yeah.
So how we set up is going to be slightly different. But taking those positives on those 1v1 battles and how solid we were, how compact we were at the back, is something that we need to make sure we bring into that next game. and then just trying to think about how we then change our attack maybe to a team that's trying to play obviously a different style of football to what we saw on Sunday.
Yeah, of course. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really hoping I can get down for that one. Really excited for it. And last thing about the match then. So Lou Hembra won Player of the Match. Can you talk us through a bit about kind of her performance during the match as well, please?
Yeah, a new player that's been brought in. Fantastic, obviously, to have her across. She's one that's got a bit of experience at a few different clubs. And it was difficult across that back line as to who maybe should get that man of the match, that player of the match, sorry. Because, as I say, how compact they were, everything that they did to shut down and force and dictate the play was superb. Yeah. So obviously it was the fans on Twitter that decided who that player of the match was.
Yeah.
And for me, she got stuck in well. Sort of gave us that little bit of security. Obviously, we knew that they wanted to play into. So between our two centre halves, they picked up well who was going short, who was going to be nice and tight to that player and force that play back, not letting them turn, and just made sure that they won every sort of individual battle, every play that was played through. They got there ahead and were just calm on the ball as well, which gave us something else extra of once we'd won it, we were secure of to play through and we didn't just play out. We didn't just hoof forward. We tried to play football still.
Yeah.
And I think I say it was difficult between that back line as to who probably stood out more than most. But full credit to her for coming in. Obviously, a first game in that division, first sort of proper game with us as well. So, yeah, a huge well done to her.
Yeah, fantastic. And again, like you said, that composure for first match in the league is something that's fantastic. So yeah, very, very well deserved for her there. Kind of the next one's kind of a bit more generalized. So in the last couple of years since the Lionesses won the Euros, it seems that more people are coming out, especially from a fan perspective. It's much harder to get tickets to anything, which is on one half really good that it's harder to get tickets. On the other half, it's very annoying because I just want to go see some matches. So from kind of your perspective, how have you seen the sport grow and change over the last couple of years? And what could possibly still need to be done, especially within the lower tiers, to make sure that, as we've spoke about before, that gap isn't so huge between them?
Yeah, it is fantastic. It's all positives that the growth of the game is growing within obviously the female side of it. And it's something I've seen both through working in schools, through coaching, and obviously a bit of the FA work that I do supporting the growth of the women's game. Yeah. It is fantastic, and I'd say it's frustrating. Yes, trying to get the tickets, but it's brilliant. You've got the opportunities to see them for free on the TV. And obviously there's more games that everything's raising. Obviously we've seen now the restructures to the women's leagues and how that's competing. We've seen how the money is now filtering down in those divisions at the higher one. We've got teams in tier 3 that are turning pro now.
Which is phenomenal,
yeah, so it's great to see that it's coming. I think for me, obviously, there's still a few counties that are maybe behind others. And some of that you've got to look down at maybe the clubs and the support they have within the counties. Lincolnshire, for example, we don't have many big female clubs within the county to support the whole side of it. And all those girls having somewhere to go, then we start to look down into some of the teams, and maybe the teams are less of a number in stature in terms of we don't have as many as the inner city clubs where they've got hundreds of teams to be a part of. So our league structures, there's less teams, there's less opportunities for those girls to take part. And for me, that's just where sometimes the issues lie across the county, across the country even, of setting up teams to then provide that opportunity. It's almost that supply and demand. The demand now is shooting on, but we're not able to get the coaches in, get them trained, then find a venue, find a club, and keep up with the demand that we're seeing. And I think that's going to have a little bit of an impact on some of those girls and some of those teams going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it then comes down to, well, if there's not enough spaces, can you afford to then travel to another county, another club? And it all comes down to that cost at the end of the day, doesn't it? And that actual flexibility of who can actually access these places, when really, if you look, compared to like the men's side of it, there's so many clubs for young boys and things at all ages, aren't there? So it's definitely getting there, isn't it? But it's hard Because it's
Yeah.
from like a business model, you want to see that return on investment, that kind of thing. But people are saying, well, unless you give us the chance, can't prove it, can you?
No, and I say I know there's a lot of clubs that are struggling where they've got loads of they've set the Wildcats, they've got loads of girls and kids that are keen to play,
Yeah.
but because of the size of the club, the facilities that they have access to, they're having to say, "I'm sorry, as much as we'd like to do that, and maybe we have got a coach that can run you as a team,
Mm.
we're not able to host all these teams on the same pitch on a weekend." And then you chuck in that in terms of trying to fit them all into train.
Yeah.
The issues we've had with obviously the poor weather we had last season that delayed so much, that ruined so many pitches,
Yeah, cool.
that yeah, that business model of being sustainable but also being able to offer the opportunities is just something that not everybody can do, and it's not necessarily down to a particular person's fault or a club necessarily saying that we don't want a team there or we can't have a team. It's just physically cannot have anybody else at the club and fit them in to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hope it gets to a point where that's not an issue and it's not even a question. It's like, yeah, we'll set up another girls' team. We'll do another one here. Yeah, we've got more facilities, more everything. Because when we first moved to Lincoln, we joined the Links Ladies Play on a Friday night. We tried to go, and again, even the weather just as like a leisure option on a Friday night. It affects so much, doesn't it? And you just think, if that's affecting us at, we just turn up and have a match, it must be really affecting, you guys who literally need to turn up and train and have that space in order to do that. So fingers crossed, one day, one day in the near future, not just one day in the far future with that one. Now, how important is it then? So talking about communities kind of coming out and supporting their local clubs, not just WSL or Championship, but how important is it that the people of Lincoln come along to Ashby Avenue and to away games as well in order to give their support to the Whites?
Yeah, I mean, again, every sports club wants the fans down there. It's something that I know a lot of players enjoy to have, just that support, not just from friends and family, but people there cheering you on, encouraging you, just raising a little bit of the atmosphere, which for them it increases a bit of the tempo, it increases a bit of their desire to go out there and win a game. And even when maybe the game's not going your way, having people down there that are supporting you it just gives you that little buzz. It releases those endorphins in your head as you're playing and makes you feel happy about it, that you want to go out there and do better. And having that support from the local community down at Ashby Avenue, watching the teams is something that is we shouldn't shy away from. If people can get down there to support, everybody's going to appreciate that. It's going to help massively.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, because the tickets, again, talking kind of through a cost of living crisis, people might, not realize that actually the tickets are only a couple of pounds, aren't they, for actual match
Yeah.
day? So for the whole family, it's actually quite an affordable day out to try and get into football as well.
Definitely. Like I say, it's when you look at the club and the prices for it, it's fantastic for a lot of people that potentially could walk there and get there pretty
Yeah.
easily, and spend the day down there. There's a few bits in and around. Obviously, the clubhouse is open for drinks in the park around the corner, so even before and after the game. But to get yourself down there with a family, the obviously concessions and under 16 prices are a lot cheaper as well. They can go down, watch a good game of football, support the local team, and make a family day of it.
Exactly. So we expect everyone to be down there on Sunday watching against Solihull Moors. I realise I say Moors, which might have thrown you a little bit rather than Moors.
Right.
I realised as I was reading that, I was like, oh, the accent came out there. So not that I want you to give a prediction or anything, but how are you feeling towards the game at the weekend? Feeling quite positive?
A little bit, obviously, a little bit nervous still, which is a good thing. I don't shy away from nerves and say that to my players. I'm confident. We're going to compete. I know it's going to be a different style of play to what Notts County had, but again, it's another team that we're going out there to try and compete with, and hopefully having the home advantage again, getting fans down, giving us that sort of 12th man, is going to support us. Something that we want to try and utilise and go out there and try and see if we can snatch that win at the end, or obviously compete within that game and get ourselves a good result.
That sounds good to me. Yeah, I think you should go for the 90th minute winner this time and just completely switch the game and just be like, yep, That's us.
That's it.
90
Yeah.
minutes out. And of course, we've come to the end. This has gone really, really quickly. Thank you so much. The last question, we just want to have a bit of a fun one to end on. So, if you could pick any team, any league in the whole world to either play against or as a manager, either personally playing in the team or to kind of manage the team, I want to know which team would you pick and which stadium. So, again, anywhere in the world, any league. Um, reality isn't a thing in this, just whatever you'd like to pick.
Yeah, bit of a tricky one. So for me, I've been quite lucky in a lot of the bits and places where football has taken me over the years. I've been to the Stade de France. I've coached a game within the Camp Nou in Barcelona before it was torn
Oh,
down.
wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been to places it's fantastic. We had 2,000 fans watching us play a competitive
Wow.
match in the pitch. Yeah, superb, and to win on penalties as well at the end was great.
Even better.
Yeah. So I've done that. I've played teams from France, Spain, Malaysia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's in some of these tournaments and things we've done. So I've been quite good in seeing different styles of football and where different countries have come from, going across to different teams in different stadiums. So I think for me, probably going over and sort of experience maybe one of the Americans' teams football. Obviously, someone like
Yeah.
Kansas City or something, for example, going over there, and I guess again, even one of their grounds that they have, the sizes of them are incredible. Going through college level football, the grounds that they have are so big, so different to something that
Yeah.
they have in Europe as well. So I'd probably want to go and experience some of that just from where I've been at, what I've had already, and thinking ahead to something different. That would probably
Yeah.
be something I'd like to do.
Yeah. That sounds phenomenal. That's a really good answer. So just as an aside, with the new camp, so I take it you're going to go as soon as it's redone, just to check it out again.
Uh, so I'd love to. Yep. Obviously, probably be obviously a few years down the line.
Yes.
But yeah, it was a great experience to go there, not just as have a tour and stuff like you do with some of the other stadiums, but to go out there, take a team down, come out through the dugout to a bit of music, play a game. It was
Yeah.
incredible. And then I actually went back last year on a school trip, not football related, and obviously we went to the new camp and obviously saw it all in its dismantled shape. Um, did a bit of the tour around the bit that they've got on the side, and obviously seeing some of the stuff that they've brought out of the stadium while it's under renovation. So it'd be
Yeah.
good to then see it. Yeah, once it's completed, and those before, during, and after of the renovations would be good.
Yeah. No, sounds good. Did you the whole time we were like, I've played on there. I've gone through that
Yeah.
dugout.
Oh, yeah. For some of the children that we went with from the school, it was great. Obviously, as we were driving through on the coach, was like, been in there. I was like, yeah, so have I. Been on the pitch. Oh well, I've been down to. Well, I've coached a team play on the pitch. So.
Yeah. No, I love it because again, from a teaching perspective, when you kind of you share those stories, don't you? And they're like, "No, you haven't," and you're like, "No, I genuinely have. Like, I can, I have photo evidence. I'm
Oh,
not just doing
we put it up on the assembly. Yeah.
it." Yeah, PowerPoint presentation, right? Everyone, listen up.
this is what I'm grateful for. This is where I've been. It was great. So there was a lot of children that were just, what? No, that he was actually telling the truth.
Yeah, it's like I told you, I didn't have anything crossed. It was, it was a real moment. Oh, I love that. Yeah, because it's that moment of going out. So I remember, just as a final note, we went on a school trip to the Stadium of Light. I think when we're in year 5 or 6. So everyone turned up with the Sunderland kits on, and they let us run down the tunnel to the Dance of the Night. So as a kid, actually doing that, you're like this could be real, like this could actually happen, and it just inspires, doesn't it? That next
Yeah.
generation as well. Oh, that sounds fantastic. Now, Ricky, I just want to say a massive thank you for joining me today. Send the team my best wishes and my best good luck for the weekend, and we'll have to stay in touch and see how the season goes.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me, and I will pass that on. And yeah, it'd be good to catch up again later in the season and You never know, might do another one.
I really, really hope so. So thank you for everyone listening and watching as well. And we'll see you very soon. Thank you. Goodbye.